Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Stamps.com International Shipping Webinar. My name is Stacia. I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds. We have some more people jumping on, so let's give it about 15 more seconds. Let people get settled in. Again, thank you for joining us here today, and welcome to the Stamps.com International Webinar. My name is Stacia. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at our Stamps.com software and talk about how to send international items. For those of you joining us here today who are new users, I do encourage you to attend our new user webinar, which takes place every Wednesday. What we're going to do today is skip all of the first tabs you're seeing in your blue navigation bar, because we covered that in yesterday's webinar. What we're going to do is focus solely on sending things internationally. What I'm going to do is send a URL to everybody that will allow you to view our recorded webinars. And I'm just going to send that. So it's www.stamps.com/webinars. So if you are attending for your first webinar, after we're done here today, I do recommend visiting our other webinars, and you can do that by going to the stamps.com/webinars page and viewing them at your own convenience. Our webinars are also stored in a recorded format, so you can view them from there. So looking at our home page here, if yours looks a little bit different, please don't be concerned. Depending on the plan you're on, you may be showing a different image than what I have here on my home screen. Before we get started, I do like to let everyone know where to find help should you encounter a need for help. Now, we have our customer care phone number there in the center of the screen. Our Stamps.com customer support team is amazing, and we set industry standards with our customer care, so please feel free to call. We'll walk you through every step of what you're trying to do and make sure it's clear to you. We operate from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. We're in California, which puts us in the Pacific time zone. If you're trying to reach us after those hours, there's also an email link located there on your home page. Our email team also works on the weekend, so if you have any questions after normal business hours or during the weekend, you shouldn't need to wait more than 24 hours to receive an email from someone on the email team. Also, there's some help here at the top bar where it says help. If you click that, you can open up either your content and index or your online support. The content and index are the files located right here in your software. So if I open that up and click index, I can type in what it is I'm trying to do and hit my enter key and bring up the answer there to the right. Those are very simple help files if you need a little bit more help. Our online support, what it does is direct you to our online customer interface knowledge base. There are over 1,000 articles there, and you should be able to find the answer to whatever it is you're looking for. But again, there is our phone number there, and please always feel free to call customer support. They'll be certain to help you with everything it is that you need help with. So looking our attention over to the far left, there's a blue bar running from the top to bottom, which everyone will recognize as the method by which you move around in your software. It's called the navigation bar or the navigation pane. A quick word on the postage balance, the gold box located in the blue navigation bar. If you click on that when you need to buy more postage, simply click the words buy postage and you'll be able to purchase more. The minimum purchase amount is $10. There are some radio buttons there you can choose from. If you'd like to choose an amount higher than $100, simply click other and type in the amount you wish to purchase. The maximum is dependent on the plan you are on. Most of us are going to have a $250 limit that we can hold in our gold postage balance box there on the far left. However, we do have plans accommodating enormous businesses that may be spending upwards of $1 million a month on postage. So if you are needing more postage than $250, perhaps you go through $1,000 a week, whatever it might be, please call customer care and we'll work with you to get you on a postage balance that you need for your business. However, just be aware there is a maximum balance on all accounts. So again, on the far left, I am going to skip the first tabs here that we covered yesterday on the new user webinar. The two tabs we're going to use today are the Stamps tab and the International tab. So let's start off with the Stamps tab and talk about sending just a regular letter or card outside of the country. Now when I click on the Stamps tab, this is where I would go if I want to print a stamp. Now, I can print a stamp for any amount. I can print it for any class, any amount, be it domestic or international. However, there is an international tab that you're going to want to use right here. I'll put my cursor over it. It's in a maroon color highlighted. And that's where you would go if you want to send international packages. If you send your international packages through here, you are getting a commercial rate discount, and we'll talk more about that in just a little while. But you could, if you wanted to, print a stamp instead of using the international shipping tab. However, I do recommend going for the international tab instead because of that commercial rate discount. However, if you're sending a letter, your only option is to go to the Stamps tab because the international tab is for shipping and not for mailing. So if it's just a letter you're sending, the way to do that is use the Stamps tab. First thing we're going to do is enter the serial number from our net stamp sheet. Again, something we covered on yesterday's new user webinar. In your welcome kit, you have 2 sheets of net stamps, so you can get a feel for how those work before you need to purchase any more. If it's not something you want to use, you are not required to use stamps. Again, if you were attending yesterday's webinar or are a user that's been with us a while, you will already know that the only time and place in your software that you ever need to use a particular product is here in Stamps. The reason for that is the USPS is allowing you to print your own stamps. In order to do that, you have to print them on approved and licensed label stock. The USPS has approved those labels. Now, the reason for that is the basic difference between stamps and everything else is that stamps have no date on them. It doesn't matter when you use them. I could print out a sheet of 98-cent stamps to send letters to the United Kingdom to my aunt once a month if I want for the next 2 years. Those stamps are never going to expire. Now, any other way you print postage, it's called metered mail, and the date does matter. So that's the difference between stamps and everything else. So let's go ahead and enter the serial number here, and we'll bring up a template of the stamp sheet. And we're going to go immediately to the first radio button that says I want to specify the value for each stamp. And we're going to click on International. Now, from here, you can calculate the rate, even though you've selected the radio button that says you're going to tell the software how much the stamp is. The International button is simply located underneath that radio button. However, you're going to bring up this second window, which is a rate calculator. And you're going to select the country you wish to send to. And again, I'm going to send a letter to a relative in Great Britain, so I will select United Kingdom. I will select the kind of package I'm sending. I'm going to say envelopes, and then I'll enter the weight. Now, this is just a regular letter at a regular letter rate, so it's just a 1 ounce. And I will click on Check Rates. Now, you can print a stamp, just to reiterate, you can print a stamp for anything you want, any mail class, both domestic and international. But what I'm looking for is just the letter rate, because that's what I want to send. Otherwise, I would prefer to use my international tab. So I'm going to come here to First Class Mail International Letter, and I will click Use This Rate. And it tells me right here the rate is 98 cents. It gives me the maximum dimensions and weight. Now, there's a button here that says Get Customs Forms. Please disregard that when sending a letter or document. You do not need a customs form if you're just sending a letter or a card. So you can just ignore that and click on Use This Rate. I have now got a bold stamp here on my template. I've created a 98-cent stamp. I can see that in a couple ways. One, my total cost is showing here at the bottom where it says 98 cents. Or I can put my cursor over the stamp, and it's going to tell me exactly what I have just created, which is a First Class Mail International stamp at 98 cents. We can also get a close-up view of that stamp by clicking on the Preview button underneath the template. A couple of tips for avoiding misprint issues. It's a good idea to get a close-up and make sure you've created the stamp you meant to create, but it's not necessary to get a preview. If you want to, you can certainly do that. What I do recommend doing, however, before sending your print job to the printer is to print a sample. So down at the bottom of the screen, you can see a button that says Print Sample. It never costs you anything to print a sample, but it will prevent probably close to 90% of your misprints. The most by far common reason for customers encountering misprints is not a literal misprint, it's more of a no print. Because what has happened is your printer is not communicating with your computer, and it happens to all of us. You're going to print a menu or a map to go somewhere, and you send it over to your printer, but the light starts flashing on your printer, and nothing comes out. And this is to avoid that, especially when printing postage, you don't really want to send your print job over to the printer until you're sure the two pieces of hardware are communicating. Otherwise, potentially, I just had 98 cents deducted from my postage balance, but nothing printed out of my printer. Now, again, that has nothing to do with either your computer or your printer, simply a question of them not communicating. So go ahead and use that print sample button when you're starting your work in the morning and make sure everything is working together. If you do that, what will happen is a simple sample of that print job sends to your printer. If it doesn't print, you know there's a problem. If it does print, what will come out is a plain piece of printer paper with a little tiny square in the upper right corner that you see here on my template with the word void written across it. Once I'm sure everything's working well, I can just go ahead and put my stamp sheet in there and then click the actual print postage button. Now, once I've printed a stamp, let's say that I got my preview and I printed a sample, and everything looks great, so I went ahead and clicked print postage, but I forgot to put the stamp sheet in there. Now, I'm thinking to myself, I remember the lady on the webinar telling me I had to use these net stamp labels, and now I've got my stamp on a plain piece of paper. What am I going to do? Well, all you need to do is go ahead and just put the actual label sheet you're supposed to use in your printer and click on the reprint button. We do offer you a reprint button, so as soon as you do an initial print job, the reprint button becomes active. There's also no charge for a reprint because you've actually already paid the 98 cents. It's just you didn't get the result you wanted. You printed on the wrong thing, or nothing printed at all, whatever it might be. You do have a reprint option there. So before we move away from the stamps function, I would like to just reiterate that this is where you're going to want to go to print a stamp for just a letter or a card or some kind of document that you just want to send, without your customs forms, just a letter. However, if you wanted to, you could print a stamp for any mail class that's going international or domestic. The reason I'm going to recommend not doing that is because you do get something called a commercial rate discount when using your shipping tabs. So let's go ahead and click on the International tab. Now here in International, it's very similar to the Packages tab located directly above the International tab. They both are very similar because they're both used for shipping. Now the USPS recognizes two broad kinds of mail piece. You're either mailing something or you're shipping something. Now with mailing, I think of those items as a single thickness. Yeah, postcards, manila envelope, greeting card, whatever it might be. It's just a thin item. It's being sent mailing rate. If any of those dimensions are exceeded, your item becomes a package. And packages can be fantastic for you because the USPS provides you with something called a commercial rate discount for using your Stamps.com software. You don't need to do anything to get that discount. You just automatically get it. We're all aware of the fact that the USPS has been closing multiple branches. It behooves them to keep people out of the post office. It's better for them. It's better for you. So to reward you for using a system that makes it easier for everybody, they give you a discount. Now that discount is on all items you're sending Priority and Express, and that is both domestic and commercial items. I'm sorry, both domestic and international. The discount on Priority ranges between 2 and 15% over what you would pay in the post office, and Express rates range between 2 and 21% over what you would pay in the post office. Those percentages are based on the distance your item is going. Let's go ahead and create an international label here. Now, the first thing I would like to point out, even though it's not the top of the page, I just want to talk about the importance of it, is the mailing date. I've placed my cursor over it. You can see a little pop-up window has come up letting me know that I can change my date up to 3 days in advance, but this mailing date is very important. In the days when you had to go to the post office and you would stand there in line waiting for your turn, we all would just look around, and you'll notice there's always been 2 mail receptacles at the end of the counter. One says stamped mail, one says metered mail. That's true of any post office you go into. The stamped mail is pretty obvious. It has a stamp on it, and that's exactly what you would drop your item in if you had printed a net stamp. If you're not putting a stamp on your item, anything else becomes something called metered mail, and all metered mail has a date on it. And the USPS is particular about that date, and you need to make sure the date is correct. So although I can forward date that to up to 3 days in advance for international, 1 week for domestic packages, and 1 month for domestic letter rates, I must use the date. I must send on the date that I myself have selected. So it's going to always default to the current date. Now, if you want the date to roll over to the following day's date at a particular time, you can set that in your software. For example, your mailman always comes at 3 o'clock, and you are going to set your software to automatically turn to the next day's date at 3 o'clock every day, because if you haven't seen him by then, you're not going to see him. So you can go ahead and change that. Please call customer care for assistance with that. But you can go ahead and change that mailing date. Now, it will automatically change on its own at 9 p.m., but most of you probably want to set it a little bit earlier or just manually change the date yourself. So going to the top of the screen, we have 2 fields here, a return address field and a delivery address field. Now, before I can move very far, I need to let the software know what country I wish to mail to. So I'm going to select an address. I'll click my address book, and either select an address I've already got in my address book, or I can import address books I already have. I can go ahead and create a new contact here. I'm going to select an address in the United Kingdom and click OK. Now, a couple of things to point out. Please be aware that there are some phone number fields here. You do need to make sure that your phone number is entered there. That is a USPS requirement. It's not going to print out on your label. It's just important that the information is embedded in your barcodes. The USPS does need to have that information. If you don't have the recipient's phone number, now I have mine associated with the address, with my address book, I would go ahead and enter it here. Again, if you don't know the phone number for the recipient, you can use your own phone number, but you do need to have a phone number. There's also a box here that says email recipient right underneath delivery address. What that means is I can opt to send the recipient of this package an email letting them know their item is on the way and providing a tracking number for that item. If I don't want to email them, I can just simply not have this selected. The software will continue to default to whichever selection you made. Another word on this email, you can edit your email to say whatever it is you wish to say, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I'm going to walk through how to create the label itself, and then we'll talk about how to edit the email to a more personalized one if that's something you wish to do. Back over to the left side, you see postage details, and from here you're going to let the software know how heavy that item is. Now, for those of you who already have your free scale hooked up, all you would need to do is click the weigh button. It's not required you use that scale, though. For example, I myself have a scale I apparently have an emotional attachment to because I've had it for about 10 years. It's got a digital readout on it, and I just prefer to use that scale. So if you have your own scale or perhaps a commercial scale, you can go ahead and just manually enter the weight by using your keyboard. I'm going to say I'm going to send a 5-ounce package today. I'm sending a jeweled dog collar as a gift to my aunt in England. So I'm going to enter my weight here. And the next thing I would do is select my mail class. A quick word on mail classes. For those of you who have come from using any other service than Stamps.com, I encourage you when you're creating your labels is to investigate all of the mail classes you're being offered. Stamps.com is a complete service, and it's offering you all of the USPS mail services. That's not true if you've been using for perhaps click and ship or PayPal shipping. You are certainly never going to have seen all these mail classes before. And I personally recommend not letting habit dictate the mail class you choose, because there may be one that would suit you better and give you potential for saving money for your business. Let's start off by just selecting priority mail. That's what most of us use or have been using. For many years, I was an eBay power seller, and I was only offered Priority Mail International when shipping. So it's something I was habitually using, and it's a fantastic service. My items got there very quickly, and it was just the way I was going. And we're going to talk about some other options in a moment, but I'm going to start with Priority. So after I select Priority, again, the rates are always automatically calculated. They are cheaper than what you'd pay in the post office retail window. The USPS did raise its shipping rates on January 2nd, so don't be surprised if your rates look a little higher than you remembered some weeks ago. The shipping rates were increased January 2nd. The mailing rates will be increasing in April. The next thing you'll see are the restrictions for the particular country that your address belongs to. So I see all of the restrictions and prohibitions for the United Kingdom that I can read. No research needed on my part. Next thing, my favorite, you can complete your customs forms right here in your software, which means when I am creating my postage, I am simultaneously creating my customs forms, which means I don't have to manually fill anything out. Let's go ahead and create a customs form. First thing we'll do is say, what kind of content is this? I'm going to make my choice here. It's a gift. More info. Dog collar. I'm going to put, there's one in the box, the description of the item, and I'm going to say a jeweled dog collar. It weighs 5 ounces. Country of origin, I will select the country of origin and the value of that collar. And then all I need to do after filling that out is click Add Item. The item will show up here in the item list. Now, if I've made any mistakes, I could highlight it and edit or delete. So all you need to do is click on it in order to make that edit. I would say the most common reason for an edit is if you are putting in multiple items, please make sure that the weight per package, which my cursor is pointing at, right above the drop down for content, it says weight per package, 5 ounces, that when you come down here to quantity, that when you're all done entering everything into your list, it equals the weight per package. In other words, if I was sending 4 dog collars and I put 5 ounces, it would be a 20-ounce package, and it would no longer match the weight per package. So just be aware that the weights need to match. You'll just get an alert telling you, but I'd say it's the most common reason for going back and editing. It's not a big deal. Just keep your eye on it, and you'll be able to determine whether you're going to get that error message or not. Make sure your weight matches. Once you've created your customs form, simply click on the button that says you acknowledge and agree to the USPS restrictions and prohibitions, and click OK. Now, if I were to print my forms right now, there would also be not only the postage, but the customs form. Now, you can also insure your item. For those of you who may be attending today, I had someone last week with this problem. They didn't see this insure field. It was simply not there. If you ever encounter a situation where you are not seeing something that a knowledge-based article or a customer care representative is telling you that you should see, the reason for that is you're probably not on the current version of our software. So I'm going to take a little side trip here and show everyone where you should go to check and make sure that you are on the most current version of our software. If you click your Help tab at the very top of the screen and go to the last item on that drop-down list, it's called About Stamps.com, and click on it, you'll see that in the top center of the screen, it will give you your version. I am on version 8.8.1. So if you, for example, opened yours up and you're seeing 6.8, that would explain why you are perhaps not seeing all of the features being discussed. Now, in order to update your software, please visit, and I'm going to type this in and send it to everyone as well, www.stamps.com/download. And you'll go to a site with the big blue button, the download button. You just click it, and you'll uninstall your old version and install the new version. No information will be lost. Absolutely everything will still be as it was. You're just going to have the latest version of the software. So returning to insuring my item, I'm going to insure this collar for the $75 I paid for it and select my insurance. Now, elsewhere in your software, you have a choice between USPS insurance and Stamps.com insurance. Here in International, you have to use Stamps.com insurance. We insure up to $2,500. Now, Stamps.com insurance, I would recommend, heartily recommend using it for many reasons. One, it's a great insurance. Our insurance rider is Parcel Insurance Plan, which is underwritten by the Fireman's Fund. It's a great service. They've been in business since the 60s, very good insurance. If something untoward were to happen to your package, you can even file your claim right here in the software. And on top of that, their processing time is 10 days opposed to USPS insurance, which not only requires you to make a trip with the package and the forms to the USPS, it also takes them 30 days to process their claims, as opposed to 10 days with Stamps.com insurance. So just as a side note, I do recommend using the Stamps.com insurance as an opportunity for convenience and to save money. Again, mailing date, always pay attention to that. It's very important. Let's say I wish to create my label today, but I actually don't want to send it out till Saturday, so I'm going to go ahead and select Saturday's date. I would assign a cost code if I wish to. I have mine set for International. You can call your cost codes anything you want. Each plan has a set number of cost codes, so depending on the plan you're on, most of us will have 10 cost codes we can use. We have plans specifically aimed at law offices that have upwards of 1,000 cost codes on them. But you can name them whatever you want, by employees, by departments in your business. I have mine set up to represent the selling platforms I use. But these are just here for you. They don't print on your label. They're simply a tool for you to be able to run reports on your own postage spending. To create your cost codes, just use the little tab, the little button that looks like a list and a pencil, and you can create your cost codes from here. Each one can have up to 30 characters in length. If you don't wish to use them, just ignore them altogether. It's certainly not something you need to use. Back over on the right-hand side, under Print Details, we'll now decide what we wish to print on. Now, before we do that, what I have selected here is plain paper, which is great, but you do have some other options there. For example, I use at my desk, I have a thermal printer, so for those of you who have a dedicated, like Zebra or Dymo thermal printer, our software also supports that. So just a little FYI that is there for you. Now let's also talk about sending by a different class. So I'm going to go ahead and come back over to my Mail Class tab, and instead of using the 2803 for priority, I'm going to investigate my other options for sending this same box. So I'm going to reopen this drop-down, and I'm going to scroll and read all of these things I have been offered. Now I will notice at the bottom there is something called First Class Mail International Package. Now it's still a box, and indeed it can weigh up to 4 pounds. However, the cost difference is over $23 less for this one box. So again, I do recommend looking at everything Stamps.com offers you and making a decision after you've had a chance to peruse that list. First Class Mail International is still very quick. It's also sent airmail. It's not going to take a couple of months on a boat. It is going to get there quickly, not as quickly as priority. There will be a couple of days difference there. But if that is not significant to you, certainly saving $23 might be the route you want to take, especially those of you who are sending products overseas, because for the very reason that your customers, when they calculate cost, in their minds they include the cost of shipping, and it makes you more desirable against your competitors when your item appears to them to be $10, $20 cheaper than your competitor, because the cost of shipping is not so high. Another difference you encounter when you select First Class Mail International Package is the customs form is much simplified. So if you keep your eye there on the template of the customs forms, you can see it's a 2-page, and it says underneath requires 2 sheets. But if I select First Class Mail International Package, it changes to a very simple 1-page that I cut in half on a dotted line, and I would just tape that form to my box. It still includes the customs form. It still has the postage. So First Class International Package has a very simple form. Now, if you are using First Class Mail International Package, you literally would just tape your label to your box. I'm printing on plain paper here, and you can go ahead and tape that onto your box. Now, if you're using Priority or anything else, anything besides First Class Mail International Package, it's a multi-page form. So let's go back to Priority, and you'll see requires 2 sheets. Now, when I go to attach this to my package, I'm going to need to use the USPS sticky pocket. It's a clear plastic pocket. It's adhesive on the back. I would fold in half my form, stick them in the pocket, and stick that adhesive pocket to my package. Now, you can get those for free. The USPS is happy to provide those at no charge. Let's go ahead and look in our online store where we would need to go to order these items. If you click on Online Store, you will see on the right there is a section for free USPS supplies. And if you click on that, you have all of those items that the USPS is happy to provide for free and deliver right to your door at no charge. We're going to click on Forms and Labels. And I will read all the things I can get for free. And I see right here, Customs Declaration Form Envelope. That's what you're going to want to put your customs forms in. Again, there's no charge for those. So you can go ahead and order those right there in your store. Now, a last word on the difference between stamps and using shipping labels. When sending a letter, go ahead and use your stamps function. I want to re-click on that. Let's go back to the top. Again, you have net stamps that are included in your welcome kit. There's 25 labels on that label sheet, so you have, that opportunity to try out these net stamps. If you want to continue using that method, you can buy more stamps right there in your online store where we were just visiting. You would just click where it says net stamps and you can order more. Please be aware that the USPS does not allow the photo stamps or the themed net stamps, which are also in your welcome kit. You have a sheet of the themed net stamps. They're the ones that are very colorful. They have photographs on them. Much like when you go to the post office, you can select between the different designs of stamps, or you can buy plain stamps. For international items, the USPS does require that you use the plain labels. So use the ones called original net stamps. And you do not need a customs form when sending a letter or documents. You only need a customs form when you're sending a package or an item, I believe, valued at more than $400. If it's a document valued more than that, you would still need to use an insurance form. Again, you can print an international stamp for any mail class you want. And for those of you who would like to use Global Express Guarantee, you would need to print a net stamp for that too. That is not found in your international tab. Global Express Guaranteed, if you don't know what it is, it's probably not something that you are using. It's even faster than Express Mail. Global Express Guaranteed is an overnight international service. If you're going to use that, please use your Stamps tab to print that. You won't find it in your international tab. If you have any questions, please feel free to send those through. We are just about done with the information about international. I'm going to make a quick visit to creating your USPS Pickup and Scan form. For USPS Pickup, the USPS will pick up anything you send Priority and Express, and it doesn't matter whether it's international or domestic. They can just come and get your items. The alternative there is if you're just sending a single item, you can just hand that to your mail carrier when you see them. You can drop them in a mailbox if it will fit in the slot, because as a Stamps.com customer, you're what is called a known user or a known mailer, because your information is embedded on the labels you create. That means that the USPS can track you, which makes you a known mailer. So if the item will fit into the USPS mailbox, you can drop it in there if it will fit in the slot. Alternately, if you have multiple items that you're sending out, the USPS will pick those items up, and you can schedule your pickup right here in your software. I would like to bring up a glitch that we have in the software, should be fixed soon. What's happening is if you only have one international package, just one international priority package. You will need to schedule your pickup instead of doing it here in your software by going to the USPS website. You can create your label here. You have your package sitting at your desk ready to go. But right now, if you have a single international priority item wanting to be sent, you cannot schedule your pickup in your software. This was brought up on last week's webinar when somebody asked me, so I thought I would include that information today. So if you have multiple items, both domestic and international, you can schedule your pickup right here in your software. It's just this one known glitch where you have a single item being sent internationally. You will need to go to the USPS website and click on Schedule Pickup. We're going to finish off on our home page where we started. I'd like to thank everyone for attending here today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them through. I will read them out and answer them for everyone's benefit. Otherwise, the international webinar has now come to an end, and I appreciate everyone's attending here today. A quick question just came through. Let me cover that. If you're sending APO and FPO, if you're sending military packages that are destined for an overseas address, you are paying a domestic rate even though the item is going internationally. So you will create your postage right there in your Packages tab instead of the International tab. So use the regular Packages tab so you are creating your label at a domestic rate, but you will be sending it internationally. So you do need to attach customs forms even though you're paying a domestic rate. Thank you for that question. So thank you, everyone, for attending here today. I appreciate your attendance, and I hope everyone has a great day. Bye-bye.